Our second speaker is Mateusz Kucab, he's a PhD student from the Jagiellonian University in Krakow in Poland. So to tell you a bit about his PhD, his project is an ambitious comparative reading of the poetry of Emily Dickinson in the context of Polish female eco-poetry from the 19th and 20th century. He's also part of a grant project on eco-criticism called Aquacritical Rivers, talking about the coexistence of rivers in our everyday life. And so his main interests are poetry, eco-criticism, post-secularism, and ethics. And he'll probably tell you more about his other projects later. Okay, so Mateusz Kucab, his paper is entitled I See All, Ecotheologies of Poetry Between Pantheism and Biocommunication.
Is it okay? Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much. I'm really honored to be here and to present part of my project and some reflections about Kathleen Raine's poetry. And the central term, ecotheologies, is a term that allowing me to connect two methodologies, so eco-criticism and post-secular reading. Because in my project I would like to search the connections between divine categories and divine texts and the eco-aware literature and eco-aware poetry and find some correlations. So I've decided to modify my first project and think about Kathleen Raine's poetical effort as a source of significant and inspiring both linguistic and conceptual process of different understanding the relationship between human nature as well as God, with the variety of presence of this category. So during my presentation I would like to analyze several poems by Kathleen Raine, trying to define possible and less obvious tracks of non-human agency, sacred presence, as well as people. Referring to post-secular thinkers like Charles Taylor and Agatha Bieli-Cropson, I would like to think about God and the category of divinity as a term in process. I do think Kathleen Raine's lyrical workshop offers the possibility to meditate about active and vivid presence of divine discourse in language and imagination, allowing new possible interpretations. One of the most interesting examples is the poem Tell Me Dark World from the Presence. It starts with initial stanza, evoking the dialogical relationship between subject and the world. Tell me, dark world, what it is you know that I dare not. The lyrical persona asks a question about the existential stages of cognition, which, if we compare the possible knowledge of other than human world, our knowledge, human knowledge, is not complete and it's fragmentary. The formula postulates, even unconsciously, that answer should be offered somehow. The world appears to be not only the guardian of the real and complete knowledge, but the world is knowledge somehow. It's the world's ontological structure, connecting presence and the past, like it preserves the identity of human and sacred events, like resurrection. I ask the grass to every living cell God's secret toad, and we have the last stanza, where blood is shed of one who dies and rises from the dead. The long duration of soil is the source of biomemory, connecting generations in human and non-human perspective with sacred discourse and real presence of divine. The one soil connects those who passed and us, those who live, and we have a chance to observe the tracks of possible connections. In this perspective, the intuition is clear. We are all part of the process of life and death, with its material signs evoking trans-elemental and inter-ontological formula, connecting lyrical persona with the memory of the earth. the perspective of the grass, which stands as pars pro toto, world itself. The female poet does not choose any particular vision of natural world. Its structure and presence as the spaces of particular actions of God, like the world is knowledge about divine, and there is indirect process of memorizing of divine agency in active, present way, and finally that the world can or communicate about it in its own unique way, without concerns about human understanding. So the term dark world can be disturbing vision because it provokes the questions about other than human hierarchy. Some motives from the poem are well known and present in the tradition. For example, the confidence of relationship between the world and truth itself, so knowledge of the all in each seed. Although Raine presents the world emphasized by the word all, as a space that can change the perspective of a subject, decomposing hierarchy, and thinking about unity. Similar lyrical formula is presented in the poem Childhood from the Lost Country. I see all, am all. I leap along the line of the horizon hill, I am a cloud in the high sky. Like in the last poem, Raine presents the unity of broadened sense and perspective, and tries to point out some of the natural elements to define what parts of all actually it can be, invoking the correlation between details and universal experience. The line I see all, am all, presents a profound concept of ontological reduction of subjectivity, senses, until the pure all is unveiled. In this context, unveiled means discursive elements are reduced, and the all order is an order of the long duration. Even if Raine tries to sketch the natural context for this expression by bringing the visions of hill and sky, the pure experience of unity is still active. The line from the central part of the poem, I am bird world, leaf life, I am wasp world hang under a low-berry branch of hidden thorn, confronted with the final line, never, never, never will I go home to be a child, may suggest that the perspective of non-human, and that's especially interesting because Raine referred to other than human presence, allowing us to experience the unity. So I see all, am all. The context of the sacred discourse is not mentioned, although the initial verse resembles the universal definitions, or possible definitions, usually connected with God, everything being complete. The imitation allows the reader to think about formula of universal modalities of sacred discourse that bring the meditation about other than pantheistic vision of sacred unity with the world, the ethical act, in which we refuse to use our force and accept the perspective of other than human. Not only accept, but shoulder the other than human existence, and being ready to refuse the position of power. I am bird world, leaf life. The perspective of long duration and the community of plants is also presented in the rose from stone and flower, with the lyrical concept of questioning, in which existence of the said rose is the answer for every question. What does the eye see? A rosebud on a paradise tree? And then, what is memory's refrain? I was that rose before the world began. A provoking line of pre-existed other than human being reveals the modalities of discourse and imitates sacred discourse of divine. What is more, the dialogical relationship is still present. There is a necessity to negotiate and think about sacred attributes in new context. Nature, the elements of flora and fauna, birds, trees, flowers, are the noteworthy parts of Kathleen Raine's poetical oeuvre. The female poet evokes also different other than human actors of the world. So water, sounds connected with biotic community, air and wind, like for example in poetical works, water, fire and storm. Especially the last poem presents an interesting problem of relationship between human biotic elements and categories usually defined as sacrum. It's visible in the first stanza. God and me, swirling clouds and driving rain. God and me cries a lonely nameless bird. God and me beats my head upon a stone. The repetitive motive at the beginning of the verse of the first and second stanza and at the initial line of the last stanza of the poem bring the question, what is the connection between God, me, as a subject, a believer or a lyrical persona, and the world of non-human, cloud, rain, stone, as well as particularly interesting nameless bird. There are several answers we can offer in this situation. So God, the creator of the world, the term is useful because rain presents the profound spectrum of experiences. So bare heath, fire, kingdom of my heaven. He acts through human hearts and actions, provoking new approaches to epistemological and ethical recognition as well. The ethical element is evoked, I do believe, especially by the motive of permanent vitalizing, bringing and creating fire with the motive of barred doors of my goneril heart. The second answer can suggest that God tries to act through human existence. The creator needs, like Angelus Silesius or Master Eckhart claimed, human agency, what invokes the horizon of community of the creator and the believer, in which there is cooperation of common metaphysical perspective. The second proposition seems to be supported by emphasizing self-reflection about moral condition. In this perspective, God is the one who gives living energy, but in existential philosophical meaning. The storm also creates the atmosphere of uncertainty. The well-known condition seems to be reduced. I would like to read the line about God who cries a lonely, nameless bird in the context of other provoking lines from Raine, in which God is invoked and can be analyzed as more natural part, ethical part of nature as well as thoughts, because God is presented as an impulse. The named perspectives and situation can be the sources of this literary alternation and moral uncertainty, especially if we remember the poem presents a spatial perspective, heath, heaven, landscape of the mind. God can be described as secondary term in this poem, destabilizing the ethical act of compassion, with its metanoic potential performing in the moment of the meeting with the other, the representative of nature, so the nameless bird. The poet chooses to describe natural world with the perspective of biotic elements and by enumerating them, like in the line from Passion, clouds, winds, stars and ever-moving seas, or from Lyric, sea, tree and bird was I. Raine confronts the images of unity with the poetical details that evoke more visible vision of the set existence and nature, non-human beings with its unique position in the poem. The discourse of nature is based on the poetics of confrontation, using general categories and terms, opening the sense of unity, universalism, as well as philosophical meditation, with the names of particular existences, from flora, fauna, other biotic elements. It has, like in Emily Dickinson's Eve, the potential of fusion and permanent negotiation between categories, terms and context, presenting the variety of nature elements and existence in human life, from observation to ethical acts. I do think about the present as real, existing beings with own experiences, opening a space of possible meeting with the other, sometimes epiphany. One of the most interesting features of the connection between sacrum and nature is the problem of space and the spatial aspect of the poems I have analyzed. The space connects all the members of the community, humans, God, or the presence of divine and nature. Like in the poem from On a Desert Shore. Beyond the empty door, spaces, distances, stars, innumerable, beautiful and far, mysterious night over us. The darkness to his house and ours. Again, he, evoked in the poem, is similar to Emily Dickinson's poetry, the presence of divine, that is not stable and still needs and provokes new definitions. The perspective I wanted to analyze is the possible correlation of God and non-human, although I assume the noteworthy part present God as one of the elements of this community, living among them. Raine's poetical project that activates imagination and support one's effort to think about divinity and nature as vivid, vibrant dictionary, which, as Charles Taylor claimed, is important for our modern contemporary discourse. Thank you very much.